the aircraft leasing industry, especially about the aircraft leasing agreement. So the first is, how did COVID-19 affect for the leasing agreement and risk allocation in the aircraft leasing industry? The second is COVID-19 could be categorized as four conditions in the aircraft leasing agreement. And the last is what the strategies should be used to manage a risk of develop possibility in an aircraft leasing industry. So before we are going to the presentation, I will read our speaker CV. Our speaker name is Associate Professor Dr. Salawati Madbasir LLB LLM PhD. Now she is an associate professor at National University of Malaysia or UKM, and she obtained her LLB, LLM, and PhD from its university. Prior to joining UKM, Dr. Salawati held several positions, including practicing advocate and solicitor, legal advisor, and international trade and development officer. She is specialist on international law, international development law, migration, and refugees law and space law. She currently teaches public international law, nuclear law, and international development law. Her email is salawati@ukm.edu.my, and her phone number is +603-8921-6363. And now I would like to invite our speaker today. Good morning, Professor Salawati.
Good morning.
Hopefully you are in good condition and happy situation.
So far, I'm fine.
Thank you. And please, for Professor Salawati, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I saw that we have 2 hours, for this discussion. I think this is a very important topic. Thank you very much for having this kind of conversations for me to give my opinion and also my experience about what's happening now in the aircraft leasing industries. Okay, if you can see that the outbreak of COVID-19 has caused a very dramatic drop in airline passengers numbers, particularly to areas identified as many cases, the country where have so many cases. And I'll take my country, for example, Malaysia, where AirAsia and Malaysian Airlines and also Malindo Airlines having a big trouble. Last 2 weeks, Malindo Airline retrenched 2,000 staff, have only 1,200 left. AirAsia, almost I think 70% of their staff, AirAsia X and also national domestic flights also being retrenched. Malaysian Airlines retrenched until I think almost 80% of workmen because of they do not have more money to cover the expenses because no fly abroad. Our international airport is really become like a ghost place because it's only maintenance and also normal people's, the essentials working still there. This is the dramatic issues that we never thought. Last year at this time, I was in Jakarta, I was attending a very important international conference. Never thought in my mind that this year, the last time I fly is last February also to Jakarta for the anniversary of UNCLOS then in one of the hotels. That was the last, and after that Malaysia closed the border since March until today, and we are going to close until 31st December. What is the impact? The impact is the dramatic reduction in passengers numbers that really represent profound threat to the solvency of affected airlines. As I said to you, AirAsia have to retrench 70% of all of the workmen because otherwise they have to insolve their company, which is a very very important and very dangerous. So airlines have responded in several ways to this kind of pandemic. Some are more visible, such as cutting services to affected areas, while others are less visible, such as requesting rentals, holiday, or seeking to return equipment to aircraft lessor. So each aircraft have a different action toward this pandemic. I don't know about Garuda. Maybe Garuda get help from the government, or maybe Garuda have many supporters so they can still fly. But for Malaysia, it's only domestic flight, but not so much, and only using specific airport. So it's to cut off this pandemic, because we are still in the midst of facing third wave in Malaysia at this moment for COVID-19. So how we look at the aircraft leasing industry respond to this? Because they never ready for it, never thought, they never have a plan. Because I think about almost 100 years, the whole world never have any pandemic that really impactful to almost all aspect in our life. So the COVID-19 situation was not a major a taking points, at the beginning of the January Dublin Aircraft Finance Conferences. They actually start to talk about it at the last January. I did the Dublin Aircraft Finance Conference. Actually, the aircraft business, especially leasing business, are more likely having a problem for past 2 years ago. This is many important is regarding the environmental issues, also the return of sale and lease back activities with airlines seeking liquidity, and also there is continued trading activities and access to the capital market, to funding and a part of the trading cycle. So this is a normal issues in the leasing industries. However, when these things happened, when COVID-19 happens, it's really a setback. It really like not only wake up call. It's a really means that many aircraft say we're not prepared for this. We never thought this crisis be prolonged so long. And if you look at the WHO predicament, they believe that we might have we might can't fly back safely 2024. So it takes about 4 years from now, which I do believe that um, many airlines cannot wait for that long. So we have to look at three major issues when we're talking about the COVID-19 challenges for the aircraft leasing industries. First, I know that you have you list down three questions, but I also want to give a three issues to answer all these things. I mean, later on, I will give a talk maybe around 1 hour like that, and then I give you 1 hour to ask a question. You can ask anything in the aircraft industries, because it's a very much also related to the tourism industries, because tourism and aviation industry, the two that are very impact from this COVID-19. And I think Southeast Asia among the region that really hits very much, especially Thailand and Indonesia, because you guys have a depend more on tourism. So when this thing happened, it's really killing most of the people in that industry. So one, I think that you have to look is regarding the lease agreement and risk allocations. One of the rocks on which this stability was built is the legal instrument that is the operating list. Okay, that is operating list. The operating list embodies a distinct and deliberate risk allocation that is both logical and consistent with law. That's a very important. Whenever as owner or lessee of an aircraft, an airline is actually highly regulated in relation to safety, liability, and insurance coverage, among others. Right? Because I think the very major issue in the aircraft or aviation industries is the safety of the people, and then the liability that the aircraft have to carry because of the life of the people inside, and insurance coverage, because what's going to be happen is an accident at the air, or also if there's any incidents regarding the aircraft. So this is where, while for the lessor, they will need the capability in this area to manage its asset. It is not qualified to accept all this responsibility. So the airlines normally leases aircraft with the intentions to exploit for profit, which if successfully obtained, it will retain or distribute to its shareholders. because I think that all the aircraft industries, they have the shareholders and they can bring more profit. And have to be bear in mind that there is no desire on either lessor or airline's part for an arrangement whereby the operational burden is shared or the rewards of successfully exploiting the aircraft are shared, meaning both of them are not want to share any profit to be together, and they don't want also to share the burden of both. So that's why when we look at the way the contract, leasing, uh, this is why they are very careful when they put how many years or about the fixed payment for used, the rent for the fixed periods. So this is very important. They cannot just simply give rent on and no time to stop. They need to fix it. If it's 2 years, it's 2 years. If it's 3 years, it's 3 years. And you have to know that how much you have to pay. Is it want to make it years or you want to get months? And also, I think that need to understand is the other risk allocation. People normally don't want to talk about the risk allocation, but we need to, because the risk allocation actually are possible, but require important changes. I'll take, for example, in the UK rail industry, for instance, because they're doing that at that moment. There are dam leases where the rolling stock is returned to the lessor, and each night for maintenance before being delivered the next day to the train operating company. But in this scenario, the lease uh, contract are much longer, and they themselves regulated, creating a barrier to entry. So railway is different. What they're doing is like every time your responsibility will start when the train bring back to you. It's more like daily responsible. Okay, when you give it to the operator, okay, during the operator using that train, that is your problem. You may be responsible. You must have your own insurance to ensure the safety and the liability. But if you're talking to us as a lessor, we only take it back the train after you use it. That is under our I can say that is our responsibility. So the operating lease risk allocation model like this has worked well to allow the major expansion of the world fleet of aircraft actually. So this is make the low barrier to entry, and is also to give the most significant expansions of the population of aircraft lessors, and also indirectly other investors, whether through production or through market capital vehicles. So it means more or less like we are not going to take any burden if when the aircraft is dealing with the operator. Yeah. So this is still at this moment, uh, the world fleets in this area is roughly half lease and half owned, and generally this is also considered as a desirable breakdown for an individual's airline fleets, because if the countries are not fly at this moment during this COVID-19, they are access to the liquidity. So this is where the aircraft lessor, they do not want to, I can say they do not want to lose, because they know that people don't fly, people don't come, and the operational airlines could give earlier the flight to the lessor. So what they do is they give they allow the aircraft, the airlines to enjoy very competitive lease rates. For example, Malaysian Airlines before want to lease about 22 for international flight, but we have to turn it down. So we have to withdraw from the agreement because of the COVID-19. And we have to talk to it, Boeing, about how we can compensate Boeing, because we already make an agreement that we want to have these 22 flights. So this is where the risk allocation in this industry is taking part. So the cornerstone of the risk allocation is that the contract is asymmetrical. Yeah. Uh, the lessor obligation will be limited because, for example, the lessor obligation in the leasing industries is a more on agreement condition. The agreement condition is where once the airlines accepted the condition of the aircraft, so the responsibility is transferred to the airlines. Meaning, before we send to the airlines, we also must ensure that all the responsibility are go for the lessor. Once you give and you accept that condition, there are no more responsibility of the lessor. So to ensure non-interference by the lessor or those claiming through it, the quiet enjoyment of the aircraft by the airline is actually being granted, like return of any deposit, possible paying out maintenance reserve for qualifying expenditure, and also possibly contributing to the cost of implementing a mandatory airworthiness directive. So we have to be very careful because airlines have their own shares, and normally airlines, I take example from my country, Malaysia Airline is actually a based government-owned company, but AirAsia or Malindo is by the private. So this is the difference, you know, that in terms of shares. Yeah, and for Malaysian Airlines, they are quite trouble compared to Malindo and AirAsia, because AirAsia is a company, so they have to go to the board of directors, they have a special meetings, and they can make a decision what's next for the industries. But for Malaysian Airlines, it's like we have to go, you know, very, you know, governments, there's a hassles here and there, bureaucracy, blah, here and there. Then you can see that what's going to be happen. So this is where we think that the negotiations, you know, is a very important when you're talking about the challenges of aircraft leasing industries, because at this moment we cannot predict when we can fly safely back. I do believe as long we don't get any vaccine for it, I myself will not fly. Even in Malaysia, I don't fly. The last flight is to Jakarta last February, and after that, I never fly to any of the parts of Malaysia. I asked for the this Zoom meeting or WebEx and all that, because I'm not feel comfortable to fly. Yeah, so this is where the least agreements like really have to look whether the contract in the leasing industries, are they actually the aircraft leasing industries, is there any words used for force majeure? The force majeure is cannot be used simply because it's have a COVID. They have to be looked whether before COVID, the business itself, is it drive goods, or is really static, or is really going down? Because many of the aircraft at this moment, they use the clause for force majeure, because for them, we don't want to have this aircraft anymore. We must have back our money, because we can't operate. So you can take back your aircraft. We pay how much the compensation that we have to pay, but we can't pay more than this. So this is where we have to look that whether not only the force majeure, but the doctrine of frustrations also could apply in circulation, because for the lessor it's the frustration, because you already, airlines want to take this aircraft for certain times or certain limited periods, but then you have to give it us back early. And you can't blame also for those airlines, because the airlines is actually, they have to do it because they can't go for operation because of COVID. And what make it worse is like, if we are just put that kind of petition, this kind of thing in the contract, we have to look at very far than that, because force majeure is not simply because of COVID, but that's what have the airlines try to say. But of course, for the lessor, it's a very frustration. But this is the two things, yeah, for me, cannot simply having, because we need to see this, because many of the country, they do not have the frustration yet, the control of frustration, because for them, we not like ready for this particular situation. Yeah, so this is why for me the lease agreement itself need to be looked, and the risk allocation must be put in the agreement so it can cover both of them. Yeah, it's cover both of them. This is for me very important, because if we only look at the agreement just in a normal way before COVID, then it would not good for the industries. Because I think aircraft at this moment, having all the aircraft in the world, including the richest one, Emirates, Qatar Airways, they are also facing a lots of trouble because no destination to go. And if they want to go also, that is like the barrier because the close of the borders and also the international flights. So this is where I think things that we have to look very carefully. That's the first. The second, the commercial reality. Yeah, we have to bear in mind that we have to go back to the reality. Previously, people always have a dreams that to be a pilot, cabin crew is a glamour work. Yeah, it's a glamour because you can fly, you can do this, all this kind of thing. If we just only bring, if we just only bring, yeah, the commercial world work as simple as reciting the street legal position, I do believe that the lessor, they will be entitled or legally simply to decline requests for concessions on lease obligation. For example, the request for rentals holidays are supposed to be advance notice that the rent will not be paid even though due, because the reduction in ticket receipt has created a liquidity crisis at the airline, like can pay, can't, won't pay, whatever it is. So this is where the lessor want to be protected. For them, whatever it is, they still want to see return to the financial health for their company when the COVID-19 crisis period has passed. But as I said to you, we can't know. We never can get an exact date or year that we can fly like normal before. So the only help is delaying the end to a business, whichever they are struggle for. Because for me, many airlines have a very drastic changes because they need to pay for so many things. Yeah, and that is a very very important, because it's not as easy as we say. There is a commercial, and when talk about commercial, they are not talking about thousand, is a millions rentals, because it's a commercial flight, and you know that the commercial flight, whether it's different from cargo flight. So that is where the airlines, most of them are struggling at this moment, how to still to afloat at the business, or we close the business. So we still have in Malaysia Asia, but very small. Malindo is only with 1,200 staff only, where 2,700 already been retrenched last 2 weeks. So this is the period, I do believe, yeah, during this COVID, is the period where both lessor and the airlines should have the process of discussion, yeah, that could end up with repossessions of an aircraft, where we know that will be a very difficult, yeah, to place in the present market, and also an unsecured claim for future and unpaid rent against an insolvent or barely solvent airlines. So it is not a great choice. That's why for me, better the lessor and the airline sit down together and discuss about how they can go for the win-win situation. Because if the lessor are still trying to say that this is my flight and I want you to pay accordingly, I think that will be ridiculous, because at this moment there's no way airlines company making a profit. So this is where I think what could the lessor offer? What could the lessor offer if like that? How is it? Because as I said, COVID-19 is really killing all of us, from every aspect, changing our life 360-degree. And then what else we can do? So what could lessor offer for this to the airlines? So I think the best is why not they have the rental holidays, the phrase rental holidays. The rental holidays is actually covered a multitude of possibilities. So in practice, lessors offering support that whoever want to defer payment only, but not forgive it. Meaning you can still have the flight, you can pay a little bit late. The late that I mean here is discussion between two. For example, we still have flight that we just rental from Boeing, so we can't just simply bring because we still, in the progress that to see where Malaysian Airlines going to be after this. So we ask for the rental holiday from Boeing. Rental holiday means we want to pay for what we have at this moment, but can you delay it? Delay for us to prepare enough financial to pay. So this is at least give a time. You not forgive that debt. No, you not forgive that rent. You never can forgive that rent because it's a commercial. But you have to give a deferred time for the airlines to pay. So effectively, a standstill for a limited period with an agreed payment schedule to recapture the unpaid rent. So no matter what, still the airlines have to pay to the lessor. There is no way your debt will be forgiven. So it is likely that an event of default, because when you event of default, which is the lease cannot be paid at all by the airlines. So this is where I think the lessor actually they don't want to see the airlines become insolvent or being liquid, because for them this is no future for them too, because if so many airlines whether they are merged or they close down, it will be a very bad impact to the industries, not only for the aircraft leasing industry but the aviation industry as a whole. Yeah, at this moment we'll see that many of the people, the staff working with aviation industries are lost their job. They never thought, the pilot that we already know their salary is normally being looked exclusive in my country. Like when you are a pilot, you fly the commercial flight, say wow, your income at least 56,000 ringgit Malaysia per month, at least, and you get more and more seniority. But now many of them are just selling on the streets. Since that my houses are not far from KL International Airports, it was sad, to see that many of the captains that fly us for numerous destinations have to open a stall or kiosk that selling food streets. So for me, it's something that we never thought back even in 2019, so I think that's how we see on that. Yeah, so this is where I think the overall pictures that we need to see that if the airlines having the financial or the operating condition difficulties, so we need to request or reschedule debt with a creditor, which is a bank from the airlines, and virtue any request for the rent holiday. So I think this is because when you're talking about the aircraft here in a leasing industries, the aircraft leasing industry, we are talking about the financing. We call about money here. So lessor will need to consider what are their obligation under the terms of those financings in related to requests from the airlines. That's why I think when we draft the agreement, we need nowadays to draft with the substitute the security agent also, because we're not just simply like giving like normal, because now we are in the area of pandemic, and if you really want to proceed, we need to look at this thing very serious. And for me, for the managed aircraft, there will be the need also with to consult with the aircraft owner, which is the lessor of it, and the consideration will need to be given to how the discussion with the lessee advance, meaning the aircraft, the airlines, to ensure no discrimination between owned and managed lease aircraft. So we still want to give a win-win situation, especially during this COVID-19. I think that will be given more impact. So draft then or the agreement between this need to be more careful and need to have that kind of term, like I said, subject to these rental holidays, and then also about how we want to have the security agent under the agreement. So then we need to protect both parties. As you know that no airlines want to be like this. No airlines want their life to be so much difficult like now. No one never ever can imagine this is what happened to us at this moment. I thought that 2020 would be something that so glory, so good, we're going to be more achievement. Instead, like we have to facing 360 degree of our life when we have to wearing masks, social distancing, blah blah blah. So this is for me that it makes you a little bit distance many things from others too. So this is what I already covered on the lease agreement and risk allocation, and also commercial reality. Last but not least, we have to look, the issue of this COVID challenges to this aircraft leasing industry is the airline restructuring. Because in the situation of pandemic, this impending distress, I can say it is likely the airlines, most of them seeking concessions, will be making the same or similar requests of all their lessors, because they cannot move, they cannot operate. So what else they can do when they have to pay the rent to the lessor? So I think lessors should or will want to reassurance that this is the case and they're not going to be discriminated also, because I think normally no one want to be loose at this moment. Everyone talking about how they can fulfill their stomach, what else the industries. So the best is for these two is negotiation. Negotiation needs start with requests of individual creditor or specific group of creditors, normally from the airlines, because airlines normally have their own shares. So this is may swiftly escalated and also lead to the restructuring of the wider business, and also to think about the debt obligation. So this is involving all creditors and other stakeholders. That's why I said to you that Malaysian Airlines quite late, or maybe until today, are still not know whether they are being saved by the government or not, because our government cannot pay so much anymore. Because if we look at Malaysian Airlines needs at least 6 billion ringgit Malaysia to sustain, which I don't believe my countries, my government have able to pay that with this kind of scenarios, and also our economics are not good at this moment. Unlike Asia and Malindo, because they can do that because they are private, so they can have to make the decision so fast. So this is where typically the airline in distress would first attempt to implement a consensual restructuring with its creditor, because it's outside of a formal insolvency process. So where this kind of process involving the risk cradling of the airline's debt, because as I said to you, the topic that this is where how you need to look at the situation both. So of course, for the airline in distress, they involving the rescheduling back of the airline's debt. So normally generally aim at alleviating the liquidity pressure on the business. So as part of such a restructuring, the airlines also may seek to set up a creditor committee, to provide a platform for discussion. Again, when you have a debt to other party, you can't just simply bring it to court or say, oh, I don't want to pay. You need to pay despite whatever situation. The only thing, how we can cater each other needs at this desperate time. So lesser would be represented on such committee alongside other stakeholders too. So this participation in such a financial restructuring is voluntary, and the commercial reality may be that the alternative is formally insolvency. If it happened, this is a potentially much lower recovery for the lessor, because if you go for the insolvency in this area, I think they're not going to get much, because this is where at this time where the travel being reduced because of this COVID-19 continues, it may be difficult to agree financial restructuring actually with all creditors and stakeholders. So in such instances, there are a restructuring and insolvency tools, because that is how the airlines want to put it an end. They want to put it to the end, and they say that this is where we can't stand it. We cannot stand to pay prologue, but at the same time also we can't to have only delayed. So we tend to insolve, to put to insolvency, and so we insolve it. So whatever we have, we pay whatever the balance we can't pay. So I think in this case, still it depending on the location of the center of the main interest of the affected airline, because are they want to having the local restructuring, and I think if there is a case, and insolvency tools must be applicable. So this is where I think if COVID-19 impact air travel for a protracted periods, so even the scheme and equivalence or whatever temporary assistance that been given, or any numbers giving, any airlines being given more normal face normal insolvency, I think many of the airline would choose to go for insolvency, because I think they don't want to having a problem with the aircraft grounded, because they need to pay to the airports, like the rental place for those airlines, and also the passenger stranded, because passenger like Asia passenger are still ask for money to refund, and Asia reply back, we can't refund your money, but we will give you the bonus or the point that once we can fly, you can choose your destination. And people are very angry. We need the money. We don't want for destination. So until today, Asia, like, if you call, they won't pick up. You email, they won't entertain. So they keep sending an emails or WhatsApp to you that okay, we will give you a point. So I also for example, like I supposed to fly to Cambodia with my family last March because of lockdown in Malaysia. Then I just forgive all the ticket, because I getting fed up, because I asked them where can we get the refund, even half, and they said I'm not going to get the refund, but I only can choose destination equivalent to the price of flight ticket that I paid during that time, so I can fly after that. That is not what we want. We want to refund at least half of each of a ticket, but that's not happen. Why? Because of this case. Because if they refund all, then they can't make any things, because they need to have the things that especially with the companies, with the lessor. So this is where I think many of the airline ask for the government to support, because if the government was minded to support any distresses airlines throughout this COVID-19 crisis, they would be very, very much like to be scrutinized. That's why when AirAsia is actually try to say that help them and ask for 60 billion package from our government, they are being bashed. There was like, how much money that you get, Tony Fernandez, before? How long that you are being rich, and now you ask for the government also cannot make a decision on Malaysian Airlines, and you are coming and ask for the 60 billion package? You must be crazy. So then it's just like nothing happened, it's just nothing happened. So as I say, can say that in this case, this is where as a conclusions, lessor, no matter what, they will need to develop their strategy to meet the challenges that their customer face very quickly, with the knowledge that refusing assistance might trigger payment default. That's why I said they have to back this leasing aircraft agreement. And this is how I said, because need to be into force by this, because if not, I think the airlines will have to be insolvent. And if there is a case, you can't get anything from it. So it's better the option available to all the airlines to reconstruct their business and debt with the lessor, I think, can be agreed and implemented relatively quickly, because it's in order to avoid the airlines from collapse. Because I think knowledge here will be valuable in implementing a strategy. So ultimately, I do believe that, however, this COVID-19 is going to continue to cause pain, and I think the discussion that we have today is actually a commercial conversations, because we are talking about how to allocate the pain. We're talking about the pain, both party facing, because no flight, no commercial flight operation, no passenger, no money. So we are talking about money here. So this is where I think that is how we're talking about the allocation that pain. We are talking about how to put the pain on whom and how. So, and the timing of that pain as between lessor and the lessee, which is the airline. So for me, how did COVID-19 affect for the lease agreement and risk allocation in the aircraft leasing industries? I think I explained that things before. And is it number two is actually COVID-19 can be categorized a forced condition in an aircraft leasing agreement. I think you can't simply just put as a forced condition, because as I discussed with you just now, where to put the pain? If you want to enforce it and the airlines fail to do it, there's no point. We're talking about the recovering. We're talking about recovering. Yeah, we're talking about recovering. So you better look at this scenario and put it properly. Yeah. And then the strategy, yeah, what strategy should be used to manage a risk of default possibility in aircraft leasing? As I said to you, what is the way you have to discuss, but you put the terms like holiday term, security agent, and some few things, because if not, both were lost, because we want to maintain the airlines for not collapse. One day collapse, they will be insolvent. So when insolvency comes, you can't get much as what you get, because you cannot predict how much the airlines have left. So we are in the dangerous positions. Whether we work with the airlines or the aviation industries, this is we're facing a very, very dangerous challenges, because we need to have a very good strategy to put the pain on the person that is supposed to, without forgive the debt. That's a very, very much issue here. So have to put it nicely, as you have been making a cake, and how to put the cake nicely accordingly to make a good taste, and also to look at it, you want to eat that. But this is we're talking more about the scenario where the operation cannot be done, and but you have to pay the debt, and the lessor is also like want to get what they're supposed to get. So I think that's from me, and I open it for discussion. We still have I think about 1 hour 15 minutes for discussion.
Okay. Uh, okay. That was the wonderful presentation from Professor Salawati. Coronavirus is a pain, and no one want it. Okay. Now we are going to the next session, which is discussion. The questioner should prepare a critical question regarding to the issue, and hopefully this discussion will be done in two-way interactive discussion. You may able to ask question, sharing your perspective and respond statement. Anyone want to ask a question? Is there any question? Okay, for all the audience, is there any question? Okay. I want to, in this pandemic, all of people feel the pain. And can we and pilots who feel, can pilots claim their rights in this pandemic? It's like, such as their payment, their, and also, and their right. Okay.
Okay,
This, can it will,
you're talking about the pilot, right? The pilot. Okay, I think the pilot is more on the employer-employee relation,
yes, can,
because yeah, and I think of course I thought the perspective of my country when they retrench or stop for the pilot, especially the experienced one or the junior one, they notice them for about 1 month to 3 months. What the process happened in Malaysia is, since March they don't fly, so start in April the major airlines like Malaysian Airlines, AirAsia already cut their salary half. So after June, we see that the situation are not good. We just fly in I mean around Malaysia, in Malaysia, not the domestic flight only. So it's not bring much. So what happened by July, August, September, where I think the first batch of the Malaysian Airlines and AirAsia took place to be retrenched. And again, October is where the major retrenchment by AirAsia, Malindo Airlines, and also the second round of AirAsia. So in this case, what I know that for the AirAsia and Malaysian Airlines, they have the compensation. They got certain compensation according to their seniority and how long that they work with the airlines, and then that month's salary only. It is include also for those people are not in as pilot, also the other crew cabins, yeah, who involved that. But for the pilot, they only can give the compensations and their last salary, which is half already. They can't offer much because the situation is there. Is I think that the industry is almost die. So no matter what the pilot try to do, they have to understand that they don't fly since March, and it's not anyone's fault. It's this pandemic who make us like this. So that's what happened, and it's pain to see them, because many of the captain actually they're working almost 20 years. They fly Malaysian Airlines, Asia almost 20 years, 15 years, and you see them open the small kiosk selling the street food. So for me, something that disheartened actually to see that.
okay, thank you, Professor. Is there anyone to ask the question? Any question?
I see 24 participants here. So I do believe that at least there is must be 3 or 4 questions come from them. You know, yeah, I hope at least. Of course, I don't see their face because they don't turn on their videos. But at least I hope that they can take part, or maybe not in a question. They can also give the opinion about this, not necessarily a question. They can only ask what they think about the scenario. No problem. I accept that.
Yeah, the audience, you may also give your opinion or your critique when anyone wants to deliver their question or etc. Okay, Professor, about holiday rent, uh, if someone they say that they want to, if they want to pay the holiday rent, but in the last of the day time to pay, they are doing what is it? They are not paying it. How about it? How we can resolve it? Is there any new problem if there is
Okay, as I said just now, the lessor don't want to lose their rents because that's their flight, the aircraft. But the airlines are not have payment yet because of the operation are not work. So the best for them is they can put the terms of holidays. The holidays rent means that okay, we give you off, we don't count on certain days. But as I said, not to forgive, but to delay it. So that's why for the airline, they need to project their, their future very carefully. Are they going to operate after this in the uncertain time like now? Can you predict that, okay, 2022, I will back. So these 2 years, what's going to happen to your airlines? So this is a very important. So that's why the lessor are trying to get back the money what's supposed to they get. But for the airlines, they want to pay, but they don't have money to pay. So of course, sooner or later, if you don't sit down and put on certain agreement or make another additional agreement for what the normal agreement have done, it would not secure the money because it's so uncertain. So better sit down and say, okay, we take into account all the scenarios by WHO, by the country, by the numbers of COVID victims and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we put down that I delay you from paying this for 6 months. Because the airlines don't only have to pay for the aircraft, they also have to pay for the place to put the aircraft at the airports. And that one is also expensive, you know. And if you go to like you can see like in any major airports in the world, how many of the flights are ground at the ground, they put at the ground. So this is all have to be paid, not free. So they have so many burden on them and their staff and all that. So the first thing is retrain the staff. Second, how to get rid of this flight. So that's why you need to have a discussion with the lessor, so that the lessor can give you a certain time which you believe you can pay. Because if you claim for insolvency and the lessor cannot go behind that or to claim that, then the lessor will lose. So that's why we advise the lessor to be more open and be more humane in these things, because like I said, it's nothing about human things, it's about pandemic. So better sit down and have the discussion in which part that you believe you can give to the airlines, and the airlines also can believe they can pay accordingly despite delay.
thank you, Professor. Okay, there is a question from Nisade Suryaningsih. The question is, what is the restructuring policy can be applied by airplane company to solve the failed pay? Thank you.
Okay, restructures. Okay, we need to restructure back. The restructure policy that can be applied by airline come to solve the failed pay. Okay, that's what I said. Everyone want to restructure back. Restructure means you limit the staff. Actually, when you talk about restructuring, you not take more the staff. We will have to limit the staff, and many of the staff have to stop. Okay, to only ensure that the necessity or the critical job only be maintained. Okay, what if you're talking about what restructuring policy can be applied? It depends on the airlines. What type of restructure? That's why they need to ask their stakeholder. What they must have their board of directors meeting and bring a proposal to all their stakeholder, and they have to discuss and vote for it. Yeah, so that's why for me, in terms of Asia and Malindo Airline is being fast because they are fully 100% owned by the company. But Malaysian Airline is owned by the government, so they got 2 and 3 phase that they need to come before they can table that to their stakeholder. And despite the rumors, the stakeholder must be very clear that is to solve the company as we can. But I think in this case, it looks like very shaky. very hard to save it because it's really near to collapse. So the restructuring policy that can be applied by airlines company actually depends on what is the strategy being used by the board of director that being tabled in front of a stakeholder and being accepted, because each of the airlines company have their own, I think, their own business motto or business drive that they want to. I think Garuda will be different from Malaysian Airlines or NUS, also for Singapore Airlines or also Thai Airways. So all of us have our own interests and our own destination. So we need to look and cater whether our restructuring policy that being used to our airlines company can solve to pay. Because as I said, Malaysian Airlines have about 12.4 billion debt, and they cannot pay their debt no matter how the restructuring has been done, because it's a really in trouble already. So they ask, there is no way to ask, only to the government, and government have to see whether it's actually worth it to save Malaysian Airlines. So that's why it's no complete or certain policy, but it depends on how you deal, also how the board of directors of that particular airline deal with the stakeholder.
Okay, thank you, Professor Salawati, for your answer. And then, is there any question again? For the audience, is there any question? Okay, Professor, I'm sorry. There are many problems and that come from and then there is two questions. The first question is from Husni Kuati. Does the aircraft that ground due to COVID be able to return to the lessor? And then the next question is, how will be the anticipated overhaul of international tax rules impact on aircraft leasing?
Okay, the aircraft that grounded due to COVID can or be able to return to the lessor. Now, normally, yes, when it's grounded, they want to bring back to the lessor because they don't know when they can fly again. The only thing is you have to pay first to the lessor. Wow. So you don't have any debt delay to the lessor. So as I said, that the lessor is trying very much not to bring back that things to them because they need you to use it according to your agreement before. So the if to answer your question, that the aircraft that grounded due to COVID be able to return to the lessor, yes, it is. It can, provided the lessor is happy with the payment. So how you want to make sure that the things is being paid, as I said, back to the discussion and look back into your agreement, whether there is any clause that allow you to do so. And if not, normally I don't think so. There is a clause for that, before this pandemic. So normally they will pay back after the times expired in a good condition. So if that the grounded can be returned to the lessor, provided there is no debt to the lessor, or the lessor puts certain condition that to be fulfilled by the airlines to return to them. Yeah, I think that another question, how will the anticipated overhaul of international tax rules impact on aircraft leasing? Okay, even though we try to overhaul of the international tax rule, especially on aircraft leasing, I think the problem is there is no operation by the major airlines. That is the crucial one, because there is no activities, there is no flight, there is no activities like before. So that is the killing to all the major airlines, or what else, the small airlines, because no matter we try to overhaul back, the tax rules, the tax is about still tax, the impost to the money to be paid. Despite you say, okay, free tax, or maybe half, or maybe 30%, even maybe 10% are still tax. So people not sure whether they can pay it or not because there is no operation. So I think on the aircraft leasing, the impact is still not going to be give any so much positive, despite these international tax rules being overhauled. Is more on how the deal of the lessor and the airlines, because at this moment the airlines cannot conduct their business as usual. They cannot get their profit like what they thought before. They cannot have the manpower. They have to restructuring back their companies. They have to take back whatever is supposed to. So there are so many ways to save their company. The major important thing is to ensure that the airlines are not collapsed. Not collapse means for not going for the insolvency, but if they go for the insolvency, means there is no other flight anymore for that, and the airlines will be gone. So the only thing have is only the debt, and the debt, they have also the rules. So what is the means of having the international tax rule if the aircraft leasing industries are growing down like now? So I think good, but still not enough to help the aircraft leasing situation at this moment.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Is there any question? Okay. Is there any question? All of the audience? Mm, okay, if there is no question, I will be conclude the discussion today. That is, each aircraft have different ways to solve the problem, but many aircraft leasing is not ready for the COVID-19. So the aircraft leasing should be clear in making the agreement with their pilots and all of the employees, and make it carefully. And then in this pandemic, the passenger have to pay more expensive and we are not comfortable to use the aircraft serving. So the aircraft should have the discussion to resolve this problem and make the win-win solution and reschedule their business. And rental holiday may be one of the solution of the problem by rentaling and paying later to prepare the money. And then the remake of aircraft regulation is one of the way to resolve the problem. So and then no one want to face this pandemic. Okay, Professor Salati, is there any closing statement?
I see that one question. Last, what do you think about the future of aircraft leasing? I think before I give the closing ceremony, as a closing speech for this, I just say to the future of the aircraft leasing is depends on how we can recover from this pandemic. The more faster we get the vaccine, the more faster we can back to the normal life. So the activities of the air flight will be in like normal. I can travel back to any destination, and you also can come to my country. It's like normal, like before. So I think last but not least for me is everyone want to fly again. Everyone want to have life like what we get like 2019 back. And 2020 is just like, we don't celebrate like now, next month gonna be Christmas and all that, but still we can't fly, you can't go back. Normally I'm going back to see my in-laws, so now can't. So I think whatever it is, we have to pray to God to take all this COVID-19 from us, because I think it's not only harm the airlines industries, it's harm the tourism industries, it's harm education industries, it harms so many industries, especially giving a very bad impact to the human life and also the human rights. So I think the best is we have to work together to ensure this COVID-19 do not kill us no matter what. And you have to be very positive thinking despite this very depressed time, because that's how make you more stronger to face more difficulties, what we hope not, that this COVID give. So the industry is facing this. We try our very much to help whatever we can to everyone that affected by this. So thank you very much. I think you are mute. You are mute. We can't hear you. You
I'm
mute.
sorry. I'm sorry. Professor, there is a question from Jen Stefani Ristianto that is, what is the suitable solve mechanism in problem of leasing agreement airline?
Okay, the suitable soft mechanism in problem of leasing agreements, airlines. Actually, again, we're not going to get one best for every airlines, but I think the very best mechanism is to get back to your clause in the agreement, and if the clause is not give a win-win situation to both or to only one, I think airlines or lessor should sit down together and discuss, because there is no way you can just fight at court, or you just cannot sit down together, because the very important is how to pay your debt, and also how the lessor can get their rent. I think that is the best. So to get the very excellent or the best soft mechanism, we're not going to have it only by the discussion, because lessor and the airlines knows what their problems, and every airlines have different problems, different financial structure, and also different financial strength. So that's why we need to sit down and look at back, and always guide it both with the legal status, meaning cannot simply just write or using the old, but if you need to have the supplementary agreement, please do so to ensure both rights being guarded. And I think also the question is how the airline commercial may have the stable liquidity of their commercial for this condition. Yeah, that's why I said just now that the the stable liquidity, because if, especially if they can't have more money at this moment, that they have to liquid to have this kind of liquidity. So the stable one is, what is the strategy that come from their board of director, and plus with the liquidities acts that being prevail in each country, because we need to look at it, because in Malaysia liquidity is a very complicated matters, and need to have specific lawyers to do it for you, and you need to get your board of director to understand and to sign on it, and also most and foremost is your share or stakeholder and shareholders. So the stakeholder and shareholders is a two parties that you need to get their permission, and then you can do the stable liquidity. If not, then we will get a problem that will fight till the end, which is nobody will win. It's only the waste of money and time. I also see that's a question, how to deal with late payment caused by COVID-19 when the airline really doesn't have the cost to cover it. Have to follow the rules according to the rules of the owner, according to the rules. Okay, that's why I said just now, uh, no airlines want this to be happen to them, and then they also never thought that this kind of pandemic can kill their business. So the best, yeah, uh, the late payment is yes, they will never, of course they will ask for the lessor to give them a time to pay, and lessor also don't want to have a problem with it, because lessor cannot just simply say I want to enforce the clause like we have before, because during that is no COVID, now COVID, and something that we never prepared and we never want to. So the way we can deal with the late payment caused by COVID-19 is really when we have to go for I can say uh, uh, the discussions with uh, the stakeholders, the board of directors, and see that this is what our problem. How can we deal with it? Because you cannot delay this thing too long. So what you have to do is you must ensure that you must have uh, the strategy within this, and then what is the best for the company, and you have to also bring back to the board of directors, and the directors have to see it, and also for the stakeholder and shareholder, and that's how is the rules according can be done, because the late payment, whatever late it is, you need to get the permission from lessor. How long you can delay it? You cannot simply delay, but of course you need to get the clearance from the stakeholder and shareholders before, because it's a company money. They need to know where is the heading to of the airlines. So this is need understanding from all the parties that involved in the airlines, and also the type of agreement that they signed with the lessor before, and also maybe another major of discussion with the lessor for them to pay late. Not to forgive, but to pay late only. That's it.
Okay, thank you for your answer and the question from the participant. If we are have more time, so everyone want to question again or give question or your response, maybe. Okay. Anyone want to give your response? Okay, if there is no, that is enough. Okay. Thank you for Professor Salawati for your great presentation and great discussion. Hopefully it will be useful for us and we can meet in offline, not only online. Discussion. And hopefully always healthy and happy. Okay, that's all from us. I'm sorry for my mistake. Thank you for your active participation. That's all from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you.